I was looking at what the span of where Drainsville covers McLean, Great Falls, Herndon, portions of it, Vienna and Falls Church, and you have, that swath of the Potomac, which is great. And we know that parks are, a big part of building, communities too. But I wondered if you could dive into a little bit about what makes Drainsville diverse with respect to other parts of the county. And are there any unique strengths or opportunities that you see your community having? Maybe there are some initiatives you've been thinking about because you have kind of some unique features.
Well, in terms of comparing Drainsville to the rest of the county, surprisingly, I would argue that we are very reflective of Fairfax County at large. The reputation, or when you think of Drainsville, people typically think of very expensive housing in McLean and Great Falls. But we have everything. I have several elementary schools in my district that have some of the highest free and reduced lunch. They're Title I schools with some of the highest free and reduced lunch percentages. I have schools, I would say, where a significant majority are Hispanic, whose parents may not speak English. It's certainly not their first language. And then I have the other extreme. I think we send more people to TJ, and we have two of the highest rated, academically rated high schools in the county or in my district. So we have areas that are just, I think the word is bucolic. I'm not sure. Neighborhoods, very, just like out of a movie type of environment. Then we have extraordinary, very rural areas in Great Falls, and we have, very market-based, affordable housing areas in and around Herndon. So, that is Drainsville. I mean, we've got something for everyone. And in terms of specific projects that I would work on to create community, that's what you're looking for specifically, community. Yeah, I mean, I encourage the civic associations to do more community activities. They tend to, the leading civic associations tend to think of themselves as unofficial town councils, legislating, telling me what to do, from a policy standpoint, and that's definitely appropriate. But it leaves a lot on the table if they don't focus on the other stuff. They don't have the obligation to provide parks and libraries and things like that I have. But the infrastructure is there. They could create activities that would bring us together as a community more than we currently experience. We have things like McLean Day, which is a once a year, one day spectacular event, but it's a one-off, and that's it. There's not enough of that stuff. And so as a consequence, there's just too many islands, too many pockets of people, and we're not, in my opinion, we don't come together as well as we should. Sports brings us together, youth sports brings us together, and the schools bring us together. But outside of that environment, there's not a whole lot.
Mhm. When you say kind of too many islands, pockets, are you referring to that? I'm wondering if it's like a strength and a weakness. Like the county has such diversity, but sometimes diversity keeps people in their own little communities. Maybe the Hispanic community or folks that are immigrating from other countries. Do you think is that what you're referring to, or something
Yeah,
else?
yeah, no, it's people uh, gathering with people who look like them and
Mhm.
act like them, talk like them. We have, um, I, it's a big objective of mine to integrate the community. Everybody is entitled to preserve their heritage, and they should. That it's awesome. I'm from a very what I thought was very diverse part of the country, which ended up, as I found out later, was only diverse because it was different European countries represented. I thought, well, we got Germans, we got Irishmen, we're diverse. Get down here, and I find that's not diversity. Uh, so, for example, we have a huge Muslim community in Drainsville. They do better. They do as good, if not better, job anybody trying to reach out and uh, yeah, integrate into the community at large, and to bring the community in to understand, and to experience their cultures. Uh, so that's a good thing. I have appointments that I get to make to about 60 boards, authorities, commissions. I try very hard to find uh, a diverse group of individuals to appoint, so that, I mean, it's usually the beginning of the process is how we all get our start, and uh, you become more and more active and involved in governance, uh, end up people running for office. Right now, I bet you there's 6 either elected or uh, candidates in Drainsville who I got started by, well, who I helped along the way by appointing them to boards, authorities, and commissions. Uh, it's important to you can imagine with so many, it's difficult that they all reflect. They can't all look like Fairfax County. It just physically, it's not possible. Uh, but as much as possible, we should be focusing on recruiting people who typically don't see themselves as that integrated into the community, or who don't who assume someone else is going to do it. And it's kind of an education process and a recruiting process. And you can get great people, but it's not the first thing on some of their minds. They don't think of themselves as being part of the community to the extent that they would be in a leadership role on a board, authority, or commission. So work on that a lot.
Yeah, no, that's great. Um, do you think the pandemic has made that harder to, integrate, so to speak, the community? Or, I mean, obviously we're not having big events and sports are not as some sporting events may not be happening, and different things that bring the community together. How do you think the pandemic will kind of shape how we move forward in that area?
I mean, it set us back. Let's put it that way. There's no question, and just in terms of the momentum that you might have been building with
Mhm.
uh, trying to integrate and get as diverse a group as you can. Just those efforts have stopped. There's been anger, and I mean the pushback, and uh, it's tougher to deal with people generally right now, particularly if they have kids in Fairfax County Public Schools.
Mhm.
It's just different. It'll it'll return and get better, but right now there's a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of just misery, economic as well as um, this social.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the pandemic has not helped anything that I'm aware of.
Definitely a challenge. I know you're the chairman of the Economic Advisory Commission. I know there's a lot of work happening with that group and along with the EDA and other groups kind of looking at the economy and how do we keep our small businesses alive. So are there any kind of current, I don't know, favorite projects you're working on in that space to support the local business community?
Yeah, no, I'd love that work. When the pandemic hit, we immediately realized, I mean, that was back in March, unemployment was just soaring, restaurants were closing, hotels were closing. We knew the economy was in trouble. So I initiated actually a grant program that ended up making grants totaling $52 million to small businesses.
That's awesome.
It was intended to help them survive. And as a result, we didn't know what we know now. In retrospect, a lot of industries were not impacted adversely by the virus. Some actually seem to have done better, but other industries were crushed. Restaurant, hotel, entertainment, arts, retail. So our initial program supported everybody in the community. All the small businesses were eligible, and we kept adding money to the program until we made grants to 100% of the eligible businesses. Regardless of the industry, it was based on their size, and turned out that in part, I think, because it hurt momentum with small women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned businesses because their roots aren't that deep yet. I mean, we were doing everything we can to get them started, but whenever this doggone virus hit, they were impacted really disproportionately. And as a consequence, 80% of the loans or the grants that we made, we went back and ran the numbers, went to small, minority-owned, women-owned, and veteran-owned businesses. So we consider that a kind of a great success that we didn't anticipate. I mean, we didn't see that coming, that the need would be so targeted. So we helped a lot of businesses get through this, and of course, a lot didn't. But now we're in what we're calling that was to survive, and now we're talking about to thrive. And we're starting a new grant program. We just had a consultant come in and do a unbelievably in-depth analysis of the impact of COVID on the local economy. It was demonstrated that the businesses that were hurt the most were the same ones that I mentioned: retail, restaurant, hotel, arts, and entertainment. As a consequence, the people who were hurt the most were those who ended up being 90% of the jobs that were lost paid 80% or less than the area median income. So it was a specific segment of the economy, the low income earners, who were most severely impacted. So we're targeting everything to the extent we possibly can. We're targeting everything to helping those industries and those employees get back and do we said do better. We want to do better than we want to offer them something more than the opportunity to work two minimum wage jobs in order to afford an apartment that they share with another family. I mean, and that's the world that they live in right now. So,
Yeah.
so we're pretty fired up on that. I mean, my whole board's excited about this, and so
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I guess the next step is to really see not just of those businesses that received grants, but others as well. But what you said, the thriving piece, are they going to be able to sustain? I mean, we're dealing with that with childcare, family childcare providers, especially in my field. So it's a challenge, and helping a lot of these small businesses, like you said, restaurants, retail, and so on. That's what makes a community. The arts, I mean, all those pieces, if those things go, then the community doesn't have that piece of themselves, so to speak.
yeah, that was when I justified the new grant program. It's one thing to lose the economic activity, but we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about serious, cultural loss if we don't have
Yeah.
restaurants and art activities. And so, yeah, no, it's really important that we get them back
Mm-hmm.
to
Um,
working.
yeah, I'm curious, when you're planning new projects or thinking about like this grant initiative and other projects, how do you typically get the community's feedback and input in your processes? I mean, I know you have a lot of boards and commissions, and people can testify at board of supervisor hearings, but I'm wondering from your own perspective in your district, what is your best way to understand the community's needs?
Well, I mean, I hear from them a lot,
I'm sure.
but for example, with the new grant program, uh, we gave the consultant dozens of organizations and individuals that we wanted them to talk to, so we got the direct feedback. And then typically we have, public outreach meetings. I don't recall specifically doing one for the grant program, but, we have public, we advertise it and people have an opportunity to comment. Uh, Generally, for almost everything we do, we have uh, very elaborate efforts to meet with the community, some dozens of meetings sometimes. It's almost, you know, let the community tell us when they've had enough. We do a lot. Budget is the same way. Try to make ourselves available. If an HOA wants to meet with us, talk about budget, we'll drag the superstar budgeting staff from the county to someone's living room in normal time, virtual now, uh, to talk budget, whatever it takes. I think we do a pretty good job of outreach.
Mhm.
There's always going to be someone who shows up at your final hearing and say that you know you need to defer this. I just found out about it yesterday, and you're like, we've been talking about it for 3 years. So I mean, you're never going to get 100%, but I think we do a pretty good job of community outreach.
Given the diversity, and obviously equity and diversity inclusion are such buzzwords these days, and one, Fairfax is obviously an important component of the work that the county does and how we reach the community. Do you feel like all voices are heard in the process, and how do you ensure that can happen given that diversity, and it's not just the same people kind of coming to the table and speaking their opinions?
Yeah, there is a lot of that. There are people who been on boards or commissions since the 1990s, and they get a sense of entitlement. I mean, I'm not criticizing them. They're active, they work hard, but we our obligation is to the community at large. I mean, they make a tremendous contribution because they become subject matter experts, and they can bring things to you that are really important to be considered, but they can't tell you what to do. It has to be a community involvement, and there are members of the community who absolutely believe that their opinion doesn't matter, and so you have to try to convince them that it does. And it's interesting to sit here. It almost becomes predictable when you announce you're going to do something. You know who's going to complain. You know who's going to support. You know who's going to, want to know how much it's going to cost because their taxes are too high. I mean, it just, but that's probably 5% of the population. You know them. They know you. It's getting the other 95% that is the challenge, and that I think, challenge and the obligation. I mean, we have to do everything we can to get everybody involved.
I have a couple more questions, but does anyone on the team want to chime in? Do you have any burning questions for Supervisor Foust?
I had a question, Supervisor Foust. You mentioned just kind of this, the spread of your residents, and that you're seeing people at, much higher income levels as well as lower income levels. So we also had the chance to talk to Supervisor Stork's staff, and they mentioned the same thing, that they're seeing, this widespread, but that generally people look at Mount Vernon District as being lower income. And I think, right, the exact opposite can be said of Dranesville District. So how do you think that perception of your district, or even both of your districts, has both helped and hurt, your progress towards making it more livable for all of your residents?
Yeah, well, it doesn't help to have to be viewed the way Dranesville is viewed when you're asking for something, because there's a sense that you've already got enough. We got areas of the county that need more, and I agree with that to some extent. For example, schools. I have several Title I schools out in the Herndon area, but most of my schools just don't need the extra help because the parental support is amazing, and the involvement. And so for additional resources to go to some of the schools where it's needed is, I'm 100% supportive of that. But when it comes to things like parks, I'm not complaining because I have great parks and lots of parks, but just as an example, you don't want to be left behind because people, well, you don't need it. Everybody, we need it down in Mount Vernon. We don't need it in Dranesville. And some of that happens, not too bad. The board is, I've been on a board now 13 years, I think, in my 14th. I'm almost amazed at how reasonable the boards have been over the years in terms of, somebody brings something to us that is obviously going to directly benefit their community, and we're going to end up having to pay for it across the county. We generally support it, because I know that next time I bring something, as long as it's, as long as it's recognized need being addressed, even though it's within my district, I'll get their support. So, I would say it's not the greatest situation to represent Dranesville when you're asking for something, but it's not a major impediment to getting what we need in our community.
That's great. Are there any specific, Cheryl, Ann, and I chatted with Deputy County Executive Rachel Flynn yesterday, so I asked her this question too, but I'm curious from your perspective, are there any innovations or really exciting work happening in, Fairfax County is clearly a model to most of the country, but are there other areas that you all have looked to for innovations or projects that have worked? Either regionally or globally or nationally, to kind of help to expand how we can even grow further in Fairfax County, to kind of get to that livable community concept.
Well, there's, we pulled off some pretty amazing things that, took some courage, I feel. Tyson's is, probably example one, converting that whatever office park into a vibrant urban center, and it's not there yet, but it's getting there. I mean, that took some bold thinking, and it's constant effort, but it keeps moving forward. I think it's a national example. Mosaic, if you're familiar with Mosaic, that's where I was on. I've been on the community development, I think it's called, board CD for Mosaic since the beginning. It has been an unbelievable success. And that's what I was doing right before I got on this. We had our annual meeting. That's an example of how you use creative financing, working with a developer who has little or no options without some kind of public support. And we went in with tax incremental financing to construct the infrastructure for Mosaic, and the developer just has knocked it out of the park. Now it's spinning off money to the county that we would not have gotten otherwise. I think we're doing some creative things with innovative things, maybe with housing. I'm chairman of the housing committee. Also, my two committees are housing and economic initiatives. We just adopted a very liberalized accessory living unit ordinance that is going to help a lot of people, I think, be able to keep their homes, stay in their homes as they get older, because they're going to be able to rent a small portion to up to two people. It's also going to help a lot of people who are looking for a place to live. That was a big deal. We just completed strategic plans for delivering up to 5,000 affordable units over the next 15 years for people earning 60% or less of the AMI. And we are going to present next Tuesday the results of a very elaborate study on how we're going to preserve that study, the 5,000 units. That's new units that we're going to help develop. Then we will present a study on next Tuesday that will demonstrate how we're going to commit to and work to preserving, I think it's 9,000 market rate accessible units for people earning 60%, I think it is. But anyway, a housing preservation plan, because one of the biggest problems we have is that if the units are not, legally obligated to maintain affordable rates, but they are offering affordable rates based on market, those market rate affordable units are getting eaten up by developers, torn down, and very expensive product is being built in lieu thereof. And so we're committing to helping preserve what a market rate affordable housing exists out there today.
Supervisor Foust, are those units, is this county? I know there's a lot of this happening in Mount Vernon as well. Is this piece countywide, or is this specific to your district?
This is countywide.
Okay. Do you have any specific areas in your district where you guys are looking to do this, or where plans are in the works?
Yeah, we've had some success. We've been doing creative things across the county, including here in Drainesville, where the county makes available land that it owns to affordable housing developers.
Gotcha.
Which dramatically changes the numbers. And as they say, they can pencil it out and make it work if they don't have to pay for the land. So I just developed about 80 units of affordable housing for seniors.
Yep. Lewinsville, is that the Lewinsville Center?
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
And then the other thing we've been doing, we committed to funding, increasing funding for development of affordable housing by what we call 1 penny, which sounds like nothing, but is the equivalent of about $28 million. If you raise the tax rate 1 penny, you generate $28 million. We committed to that increase, but then we had to revise the budget last year whenever COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been looking for other ways to help, and of course, making our land available is one. We also have some funding that we do intermediate loans that really carry no interest, don't get repaid for 30 years, whatever. It is, basically to help the developers qualify for getting low-income tax credit from the state. So I just approved one in my district, a very large one, 274 units out at Arrowbrook, which is committed to providing housing for people earning different percentages, but 40%, 50%, and 60% or below of the AMI. So it's a really big deal. And it's walking distance to a metro station. So that's the other thing we try to do is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely important because a lot of low-income folks may not have access to a vehicle. So that's great.
The other thing I'm doing in Drainesville specifically is two comprehensive plan amendments going on right now that will help develop community. One is in McLean. If you know McLean, you're probably not impressed with the downtown area. It's been impossible to revitalize. The landowners, the current zoning is such that they get nothing if they rebuild, knock their properties down, take them out of service for 3 years while they get rid of their tenants and demolish and reconstruct a building. And when they're done, they don't have much more of an asset than they had before they started the process. It just looks prettier, and they don't care about that. So we're going through this comprehensive planning process where we're going to make available a lot more density in a central area of downtown McLean, which we hope will stimulate development that will include ground level retail and restaurants and include a community gathering place, which is essential, in my opinion, to building community. You got to have a place to go. Out in Herndon, they have behind the government center, they have a spectacular gathering place that they do Friday Night Live, and they do all kinds of concerts and everything. So we want something like that in downtown McLean. So that's on McLean, and then at West Falls Church at the metro station, we're amending the comprehensive plan to make it more transit-oriented development, more vibrant, more desirable community amenities, including community amenities.
That's great. Anyone else have any burning questions?
Supervisor Foust, I have a quick question. Being from the Chamber of Commerce, obviously business is key to what I do. Do you have any comments or information to share about how maybe some of the bigger businesses that are in the area are maybe pitching in above and beyond to help keep all the small businesses alive? Because as you said, if we lose those, we're losing a big part of the community.
Yeah. I'm not sure. A lot of their activity would probably be through the Economic Development Authority, which I don't, that's a separate entity. We fund the tune of about $8 million a year, but they tend to work with the larger businesses. The one major contribution I'm aware of is that as chairman of the Economic Initiatives Committee for the board, I'm also chairman of the county's Economic Advisory Commission, which is about 70 community leaders, business leaders, and so forth. And many of those major businesses would be represented on that Economic Advisory Commission and providing advice and support to us, direction that we should be going in.
Thank you for that.
Mark or Chris, any questions? I don't know, Mark, if you had any, or Chris, go ahead.
Sure. Supervisor Foust, at the beginning of our meeting, you talked about the transiency of residents and hearts. You said something interesting. You said hearts are someplace else. So I'd like to hear from you how that recognition of people being physically present and their hearts being someplace else how that has informed the comprehensive plans, the formulas, what has been put in place to create a more livable community.
Yeah, I think it just makes our job harder. Yeah, I mean, you do the same things, you just you got to, we're trying to create a community that in essence is taking the place of people you grew up with, families, the extended families that you have, and so forth, and left behind to come here. Many, I think a third of Fairfax County residents, this could be way off, I think a third were born in another country. I mean, so we have I think a tougher burden than most communities to get people to focus on this is home now. This is, we do things, you don't have to just socialize with the people that you know from your own community or your church or your synagogue, whatever, but just integrate. And I think we do a pretty good job of this. I don't know if there's any place. I say stuff sometimes I end up regretting, but I'm not sure there's any places as diverse as Northern Virginia, and we have very few problems as a result. I think we have a lot of positive as a result, and I think we could do much more. And I mean, I love going to the ethnic festivals that different groups from around the world put on. But except for politicians, usually there's very few people at those festivals other than the people who are of that, ethnicity or culture or whatever, formerly from that country, whatever. I mean, people don't know what they're missing. It's really, we need to more activity by everyone to. We need to learn to appreciate what we got because we got an amazing community.
It's interesting that what you said, Supervisor Foust, because even people like myself who didn't grow up here, but I'm from this country. I mean, I've fallen into that trap of saying, oh yeah, my home is New Jersey, but I haven't lived in New Jersey for 20 plus years, so
Right.
It is, I think it's a hard thing because Northern Virginia is such a transient place that it's something we all grapple with. I mean, Alicia's probably, you grew up here, so you probably have a much different perspective than myself, as an example.
Yeah, as a native Restonian, my parents moved me here when I was 6 months old, so I grew up. And actually, my father, it's funny listening to you talk about Herndon. My father, I don't know if you know him, Pat Kane. He was Pat Kane, Kane. Anyways, he's a community planner and he worked with Tyson's and Herndon and, all the things you were saying about, having a central meeting space and density in certain areas. Like those are all things I listened to him speaking about, his whole life. So, but yeah, it's a different perspective. I think I'm kind of spoiled to have grown up here because there is so much available. It's hard to leave. So I think I definitely feel I have a different, more appreciation for diversity in culture than when I went away to college in Virginia Tech in a small town in Virginia. It just wasn't there and other people didn't grow up that way either. So I think, like I said, I'm very blessed to be here. So.
That's a good place to be for sure.
Yeah, if you can afford it. That's my only complaint.
Exactly.
Yep. Mark, any questions on your end?
Yes, I would just say, we are blessed. We're fortunate that Fairfax County is one of the most diverse counties in the country, and quite frankly has been for quite some time. I guess my question would be, sir, kind of to Sally Ann's point earlier, there's been a lot of mention, of course, of inclusiveness and diversity, and these are things that there are aspirations, as I think, with One Fairfax as a whole county in different parts of the government for this to truly be a county of a livable community in which everyone feels included. Now, I know I mentioned this to the group in the past. After, for instance, the George Floyd incident, and that's not to speak on the specific case, but there were a lot of, various corporations and businesses that came to the forefront and made statements to their employees and different things of different steps that they wanted to start doing internally, and quite frankly, even local, state, and federal governments as well. My question is, how does the county maintain that accountability to ensure that long term that this becomes the norm, that this isn't just the current moment, so that, on the long term approach, everyone can truly feel included?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's going to take a lot of hard work. I'm sure. I think for many of us, and talk very generally, if you ask us a couple of years ago, did we have a problem with a race problem or sure, well, I know we got to do something about that, but I mean it's just being driven home so deeply. I don't know if you've read the book Cast, but I mean that's what I'm listening to right now. It's my whole world is, I'm looking at the world differently today than I did two or 3 years ago before these horrible incidents that, and people have encouraged to step up and protest what was happening. And I don't think I'm the exception. I mean, I talked to a lot of people, and I know, at least for now, we are, this different way of looking at things, and eyes are starting to open and realize, how, some of the problems that we've had and just took for granted, never, because they weren't hurting me. I didn't do anything about them. Perhaps I didn't think they were hurting me, but they are. They hurt us all. The whole world has got a challenge. So that's step one. Step two is the answer to your question, and I don't have it, and that is, how do we keep the focus and the momentum and increase our efforts? It just feels different to me right now. It feels like it's going to happen. That we aren't. I don't feel like we're going to go back. Kind of, we've defined the divide in the community. There's clearly an element of the community that is not happy with the direction we're going in terms of trying to address issues that have been there forever. But my sense is that the majority are, supportive of doing the right thing, and we just have to commit to not letting it go back to where it was. You just can't. That would not be acceptable. So I would say,
No, yes, sir. I appreciate that. And of course, as you know, me being directly part of the police department, I know we've said internally before, for years we've done the Citizens Police Academy. And, obviously a lot of people that do the Citizens Police Academy are typically supportive of law enforcement. But we've looked at ourselves to say, hey, we've got to go beyond that. We can't just look at this small population of people that are attending the Citizens Police Academy and think that we're doing the best job. How do we go directly into the communities to kind of build those relationships again, so they are, sustainable long term, and that everyone feels comfortable that, hey, this is your police department, and that they're included as far as their thought process behind how we should police within Fairfax County. So I know, obviously, being part of the county government, I'm right there with you. So I'm trying to figure out a long-term solution.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I think, better than I, but I've been part of it. The changes that our police department have had to accept and incorporate over the last several years, very dramatic, very significant. I don't think there's anything I would change about what we demanded, but other than to somehow communicate better that we appreciate the fact that it's difficult on the police officers to who absolutely believe, and in most cases absolutely are correct. They're doing an amazing job, and they really care about the community, and but there's certain things that that had to be imposed that have made their life much more difficult, and and they enjoy their jobs less, and they think that they don't appreciate the respect that the community has for them, because it seems like these changes have been directed at at them personally, say. And so, it's been a rough time, I think, for 4 county police officers, and hopefully we can start making them feel better about some of the changes we've made, and just hopefully we can get back. I mean, we used to think things are not as, the relationships don't feel as good as they once did, but I think they can be salvaged. I really do.
Sir, well, thank you for your support
Yeah,
and your input.
appreciate everything you guys do.
Well, thank you so much, Supervisor Foust. I know we're right at the hour, but we really appreciate you taking the time to share about all the great work you're doing in the community and across the county. And as we hone in more on our topic day, we may circle back with Jane and Patricia, if that's okay, if we have any other burning questions. But you gave us a lot of great information to dig into a little more. So keep up the great work, and let us know how we can be supportive of your work too.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad you guys are in the Leadership Fairfax program. It's a great program. I always enjoy, I love that roundtable thing that they do where we bounce from one table to the other. That's always,
It was a
we'll
lot
always
of
look
fun.
forward to that.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway, good luck with your project, and
Thanks
yeah,
so
let us
much.
know if there's anything else you need.
Okay, thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. Take
Okay,
care.
thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.